And by the way, I call you the living legend. You are the living legend.
Cool. Yeah, I studied in Mysore University. I also love traveling.
Now, retired Navy Commander Abhilash Tomy is the feat of India after completing the Golden Globe race, finishing second to create a new record for India and, in fact, all of Asia. Abhilash Tomy landed back in India after this heroic feat last week and was felicitated by the Indian Navy. He has circumnavigated the Earth on a small boat called Bayanat in the Golden Globe race without the use of any modern equipment. His journey took a staggering 236 days, during which the veteran Navy officer travelled over 55,000 kilometers despite his boat getting damaged, and that too all alone. In 2018, Tomy participated in the 50th edition of the same race but had met with an accident in the middle of it. He suffered spinal injuries, post which he needed a titanium rod to be inserted in his spine. This time, he not only completed the race but also finished second and is now being hailed as the Titanium Man of India.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the South Conclave 2023 of the India Today magazine and group. When we saw the list of the various participants in this wonderful two-day conclave, the one name that struck out for me is the gentleman who's before me. Because there are stories and stories, but the story of Commodore Abhilash Tomy, trust me friends, is one of the most remarkable stories of our times. To think that someone who suffered a serious spinal fracture while trying to complete the global race, the GGR as it's called, a solo round the world sailing challenge, 5 years later, has become the first Indian and Asian to successfully complete it and become and actually finish number 2 is just remarkable. He is in that sense a real hero.
I felt very proud about it, but I was also able to do something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. You remember Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav? Everybody did 75 things. We'll have 75 boats sailing here, we'll do 75 kilometers running and this and that. I told myself, I'm going to take the Indian flag around the world. And that's what I did. The ambassador of India had gifted a national flag, a tricolor, when I started. I took it around the world, and we have an Indian flag that is, gone around the world. And that was my tribute to Azadi Ka Amrit. What did the sponsors get out of this? They have spent so much money. What did they get out of it? It was a private company when I started. During the race, they did an IPO. And whenever they met an investor, they would go and talk to them about this boat that's sponsored by them. It's called Bayanat. The boat is called Bayanat, which is named after the sponsor. It's going around the world. It's a UAE registered boat. They had the most successful IPO globally that year. I come back. Let me finish this by not exactly quoting Toynbee, but by paraphrasing him. He says, the creative minority is made out of 10% of the society. You should allow them to lead the society. Am I a leader like that? Maybe. Because when I go out and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about every person who tries to do something like this. When I go out and have this experience and I come back, I can give something to the society which you cannot experience in your normal life. What is it that I have given back? I found myself in a place called Mukalla, a place in Yemen where nobody goes. I just happened to be there because I was on a sailing adventure. I went about and read about the place. Many years later, when the Navy was evacuating Indians, this was one of the ports, and Navy had no idea about the lay of the land, and I could give them some information. When COVID happened, I was talking about how to deal with isolation and small tweets, and that was being picked up by various newspapers who asked me to write articles, and I kept talking about the tools that you can use to deal with isolation, which has been involuntarily imposed on these people, and I think I must have helped somebody. So it's a two-way process. I say it takes a village to send a man around the world. You can't do it by yourself. In my case, yes. I'm thankful to the doctor who operated upon me, did a fantastic job. I'm thankful to the people who rescued me. I'm thankful to the sponsors who gave me the money. I'm thankful to my wife and my parents and friends who supported me, my brother especially. I'm thankful to people like Arvind Sharma, Shanbag, who came at that moment when I really needed help. So, can a man sail around the world alone? No. It takes a village to send him around the world, and you have some contribution. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, I get the point. I'll keep it.
And you were hanging from the mast of your sailboat. How did you get there?
Yeah, I remember that date very clearly. It was the 21st of September last year. I was hanging with one hand on a 9-meter tall mast in the middle of a storm, and I was all alone in my boat. And a thought crossed my mind. I was wondering, if I don't come down the mast right now, probably a couple of months later, somebody might discover my dead body hanging onto the mast. That's how bad it was. How did I get there? I was taking part in this race called the Golden Globe Race of 2018. The idea was the entrance, the sailors sail around the world, race around the world in really small boats, 32 to 36 foot boats, and with technology that existed only in 1968, so no GPS, no stuff like that. You race around the world, and you come back to France, and they eventually declare a winner and all that. And I was given a special invitation. I was the only person from Asia to take part in the race. I turned up with a boat that was built in India. I was really pushing myself hard. I was lying in third position after almost 11,000 miles of sailing. I had to do 30,000. 11,000 miles later, I was lying in third position when I was hit by a really bad storm. Now my boat, this tiny little boat, 32 foot long, it capsized once. It's called a knockdown. The boom broke of the mizzen mast. Went inside, everything was a mess. The galley had been plucked out. There was gas leaking, diesel was leaking because the diesel tank broke. Everything was, a mess.
I also love traveling. Last 5 years, I used to travel almost 21 states. So I'm really happy for you. This is my friend Rajveer, and he informed me that I should come and that is a great session. I have the question, whenever you have planned or something like how you get the travel time, because traveling is the most expensive thing. So initially it is very difficult. How did you manage?
So when I'm doing around the world, you have this big project, you break it down into pieces, and then you set target for each task that is different. And it's a huge list that probably goes into 50, 60 pages, and you have a target date for everything, and every day you review how much progress you made and when you're on target for all these things. So that's how you prepare for it.
What is the main difficulty you face whenever you go by over the sea?
Everything, you're alone, there are storms, run out of water, run out of food, health issues, damage to the boat, a lot of things.